what I thought I'd do is just kind of go back real quickly and see if there's any review of anything we want to talk about. We've covered so far. We've covered about, what, 2 pages worth? 2.5 pages worth with grief, what it is and why it is. Grief is our emotional response to loss. Why do we do it? It is a gift. It is a great gift. Most of us in our lives have not learned how to use the gift. We weren't trained how to use it well. And so I talked a lot about that, and then we talked about how to do it. We talked about the different stages. There are several stages, but the big 5 that you go in and out of: denial and the bargaining and anger and despair. We'll talk more about despair in just a little bit. Any questions or comments about that we covered last time? Anything at all? So I think this is worth reviewing just for a little bit. When it comes to denial, that's our brain's attempt to say, it's the bottom of page 1, our brain's attempt to say this is too much. And so we say, no, 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 no. And the first thing to do to help grief is really, really important in order not to get stuck there, is to identify it. I said identify it, so name it, be specific. Sometimes the pain is so hard, I talked about last time, the trauma is so much, you need a third party, a counselor, a therapist to help you feel like there's a safe place there, and that is okay to do. It's always good, whenever possible, to go to a Christian counselor to help you. And this is very common when I work in my counseling, myself working with people. Sometimes it's very hard for a person to face that pain that was done, but it is so imperative. It's so imperative. It's a little different. Well, it's similar, but not the same. But imagine for a second I get hit by a car on the street and I'm limping, and the doctors and people go, "You need to go to the doctor." What do you mean? What with the doctor? Why? Because you're limping, or I don't understand what you mean. Remember the car you get hit by a car? Well, yeah, but you're limping. I don't know why. In other words, I won't go get physical therapy until I realize there is actually something wrong with my leg. And that's what it is with denial with grief. A lot of times we won't get the help we need, so we won't move on. But the wounded child in you will demand attention forever. And a common thing I hear too is, I'm 60 years old, I'm 70 years old, I'm 80 years old, and I shouldn't have to worry about this by now, or it's too hard. The age doesn't matter. Your wounded child still needs attention. And he or she inside will act out until, like, look at me, look at my pain. And that's not a fun feeling, but it's necessary. When we talk about bargaining and how we don't make decisions when we're doing that, well, if I just do this, if I just drink a lot, it'll be better. If I could just do this, it'll get better. We don't want to do that. We talked about anger. Anger is very common as well. I did 2 sermons not too long ago. One is being offended at God and being offended at Jesus. Yes, Lord. So one's being offended at Jesus, and one is being going through suffering and so forth. I talked good about anger, being angry at God. Sometimes we're angry at people and so forth. Anger is good and healthy. I forgot to say this last time, and we'll catch up here in a second. I remember I talked to a young woman one time who came up to my office, and she was recommended to me at a previous church. And she said, people said I probably ought to come talk to you. And I go, great, what's going on? And she told me a little bit what happened. Her husband had left her. I think had cheated on her. They eventually were getting divorced. And it was a few years ago. And she goes, but I'm okay with it. I'm okay. How you feeling? I'm all right. I felt different things, but when I told people what happened, it was a few years earlier in her life. She said, they told me, some Sunday school teachers had told her that, you need to forgive them, so don't be angry. You need to forgive them and let it go. And really? Yeah. So I'm not mad, but I still sometimes struggle with. And she went on for a little bit, and she could tell. It's just textbook. She's trying to demonstrate how far along she is. What people typically do to counselors, I'm really doing really, really well. And you mentioned one thing, they start weeping. The one is it's because what they're doing to themselves. So I said, first off, I said, I'm extremely sorry that you went through that. I'm so sorry. That's horrible and painful. And, oh yeah, thanks. And then the second thing is, I said, it sounds to me that you're very angry. And then she paused, like her face. I said, you seem real angry to me. And she just froze for a second. I said, and that's a good thing. That's okay. So I'm sorry you ever told anything else, because that's profoundly silly. Why would you not feel angry about what was done to you? And she just kind of froze, like the first time someone gave her permission to be angry. Because it's very normal. If you weren't angry, when someone violates us, it should generate a sense of anger. In fact, when I did the boundaries class, if you remember, those who were here, I think you're all here, the very first sign you're healing and developing healthy boundaries is start getting mad when someone tries to cross over your boundaries. And that's a good thing. You start going, I'm irritated. Why? Well, he said so-and-so. She said so-and-so. And you get kind of, well, that's good. People feel badly about that. So I'm starting to get kind of mad. Ever since I did your class, I'm mad a lot. Well, I'm sorry, but good. That means you're starting to have a self. You're saying, I'm worth it. When I said no, it meant no. When I said no, it meant no. Why do they keep coming at me? Or why do they don't accept my no? And it should make you mad, because why? It's not fair. And that's what happens in grief oftentimes. We can get angry all kinds of ways. We do. But since a lot of us we don't feel permission to feel angry, like that young woman, then we tend to do everything else. We obfuscate, we escape, we get away, we drink it off, we sex it off, we shop it off, we rage. We have a lot of road rage. A lot of the road rage you see in the street. Speaking of road rage, see that car. So there's an angry person. So a lot of road rage on the street because people have such pent up anger inside. They're so mad. And they don't feel permission to express that anger in natural, healthy ways, but they can express it on the road, where they feel, and being on the road and it's a little dangerous, their heightened anxiety goes up because you feel like we're in threat. People go fast around us, or they go this and that. Our anxiety is higher and higher. So it's a way to kind of push that balloon like it's a water balloon that's going to burst. So people get real hard. It's real difficult for them to deal with all that anger pent up. It's going to come out. And so we need the release valve that can we need the release valve. And the way to do that, as I say here, in number 2 there, like I said last one, is we have to express it. And there are healthy ways to do it. Just like I told my children, you can be mad. You always be mad. You can be mad at me all day long. Just there are healthy ways to express it. So journaling and talking and crying and praying and tell me what you're mad about. There's all kinds of ways to do it. But we do get angry. And I think anger is very healthy. Well, David, I thought we're not supposed to be mad. We're not supposed to dwell there. No, all right. That's right. So if you find yourself dwelling in anger for long periods of time, it probably is a sign that you're wounded, you haven't dealt with your grief. What if you have already grieved a whole lot and you're still mad? Well, maybe your grief is not done yet. Well, that may be something different. No, David, I have grieved. I went to counseling. I'm still struggling with rage. Well, we can explore that too. Maybe you want to stay angry because it makes you feel, like I said up here, it makes you feel better and stronger and you're in the one-up position. Maybe it helps you feel self-righteous. If I can find a way to not forgive them and stay on top of them, I feel better and safer. And there's all kinds of reasons why we do it. It's just I don't go there first. The first place I always go is you're probably wounded. And that anger is just a defense mechanism. So if you find yourself irritable, I had a friend today text me and said, I'm very irritable today. I'm being short at work with people. I'm being impatient. And the word he's irritable, I'm being impatient at something else. And I know what's going on in his life. He's going through a lot in his life. And he said, so please send me some reflections so I can reflect on, scripture. I sent him some Bible verses and encouraged him. I said, take a deep breath. And I sent him some Bible verses and said, remember, oftentimes when we are impatient, it's a sign that we're grieving. There's something we're sad about. I said, so you've got to go cry. But also, please have grace with yourself. Because I said, you've been going through a lot, and he has been going through a lot. So that's how it is. So anger, that impatience, ooh. Sometimes also that impatience is a sign of anger, which can be a sign of grief. It's just part of the grieving process. And you might say, well, it was just a silly thing. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter if you think it's silly or not. If you're feeling irritable, you're grieving. So why not say, okay, what happened? So there's on the anger issue. I'm just kind of catching us up real quickly, except it's not quick if it's not a review. I'm sorry, but now we're going to despair. Any question or comments about that so far? Despair is what most people associate with grief. We can become, that's middle of page 2, we can become unable to contain our powerful emotions of sadness and pain. Our personality can change severely. That's true. I thought about that part last week. There's a show, I've been watching some on TV called, Elaine started, called Welcome to Plathville. And it's this people of 9, I think 8 or 9 kids, and the mom is very controlling, and then the kids, as textbook stereotypical, when they grow up and get out of the home, they go free. And as soon as I see one show, I watch some of these shows just because I go run it, analysis mode, and I go, oh man, that's sad. They're gonna do this, and that's what, like textbook, clockwork. They go out, and then this one guy who's the eldest son, who's the placater. As soon as I saw him, he's always smiley all the time. It's real silly humor, and you get around his family. Well, anybody who's real extra smiley all the time, sometimes they're in a good mood. I get it. But typically it's not. Typically it's a defense mechanism to be the clown because they don't like anxiety. And so their role takes on in childhood, they take on the role to be the clown, which is, I've got to be happy because otherwise I can't deal with the anxiety in the room. And so you see these shows, and he's sitting there, and you see this kind of, it's awkward because the mom and the dad are both awkward. And he sits there and starts being silly, and all the kids start giggling. He's the clown. Well, this goes on for about a season or two, and then he gets out and gets married. And after a little while, all of a sudden, he goes to counseling or something. And I think it's at the end of season 1 or something. And at the the preview of season 2, now it's in season 3, I think, but all of a sudden you see him become those talking heads, they sit there and talk to the producers about whatever, and he is not smiling. He's just, it is like he's a different ego state, like he has dissociative identity disorder, a very different person. And I remember telling Lane, I said, when he taps into that anger and rage he's going to feel, and that's exactly what, not that I'm a know-it-all, I'm just saying it made me sad for him. That's exactly what happened. He started tapping in the anger and rage and despair of the childhood that he was forced upon him because of a controlling mom in particular. You talk about depression and anger, what it really, really, really affected their marriage. It hurt their marriage a lot, and how they're trying to get out of it. And every time now you're talking head, he's just looking all sad. And I thought about that when it says our personality can change severely. It sure can. And that's a real deal. And it doesn't have to be, but it can be. Just like when I told you about our neighbors who lost their child who committed suicide. Well, he's a child, but he was probably 25 years old. Your personality changes. It can be difficult to control sobbing or weeping. You feel compelled to retreat, you leave your routines. He always liked going to the gym. He doesn't anymore. He always liked going running, not anymore. He liked to go to the breakfast, not anymore. And that's really, really important to understand that when you find yourself going through deep grief, if you find yourself doing that, especially if you have a good friend who says, I've noticed that you don't blink anymore, if you can pay attention and you realize that's probably a sign of despair, which could be a sign of depression as well. It's one of the signs of depression, that you stop these habits you have. And so if you have a loving friend who can say, I've noticed lately, you don't seem to laugh that much anymore. You don't seem to, what's going on? I'm fine. Instead we do that, if we can say, well, I'm just busy. Instead of just apologize, I go, what do you mean? Can you say more? Open up, you're not the therapist. In my role, people do tend to open up, and that's fine. Which is great, it's fine that it might be different for you, but it's always okay to say, I just want you to know I'm in a safe place and I'm praying for you, something I can do for you, because what do you mean something's different? You seem more down, you seem more distant. You don't seem as joyful as you used to be, and that's okay. It's okay not to be okay, but you do seem different. And those usually are signs that there's some sadness, something going on. So I'm just checking on you, that's all. Does that make sense? That's good stuff to do to people. Let you know you love them. And then last time I ended on this last part, we can form generalized catastrophic beliefs or generalized beliefs. They'll never get better. No one can be trusted. And that's what I talked about. This is called irrational beliefs. You remember me talking about this last time a little bit, and so we talk about how and I'm repeating this just in case I really want this to sink in. When we go through a traumatic event, we form any kind of event, serious event, we form beliefs about it, and these get in us, particularly when we're children. Most of our beliefs are formed as children. So if you're molested, you learn things about people. If your mom or dad walked out on you, you started forming beliefs like men can't be trusted, women will always hurt me. Jeff said last week, he said, he lost several men in his life, his dad, his friend, all these people had died recently. He said, tell them don't get close to men because they're just going to leave you. And so that's a perfect example of a false, irrational belief that you get from grief. And so we all do it. Then the question is, healthy people, as much as possible, fight that. We say, no, I'm not going to form that belief. It's not true that all men will leave me. It's not true that all women can't be trusted. It's not true that a lot of times those are racist ideas come from. One time I was hurt by this, or someone told me this as a child. My uncle used to talk this way, and then they're all blank or this way. That all or nothing vocabulary. So we stop it. We make it true. And this despair is where most of the part of the grief comes from. But I'm going to pause there for a second. Any questions or comments about the introduction? About all that. So I'm going to talk about how to get control a little bit when it comes to the grieving, the despair part. Anything at all? No? Is this too fast? Is okay. Okay, so instead, like I said each time, instead of anger, instead of this, how to express it, instead to get some type of objectivity, we must, number one, this is my bottom page 2 here, stop irrational thoughts when they occur. Refuse to let the irrational false thoughts and beliefs finish in your mind. Refuse to let them finish in your mind. What I mean by finish is the statement. And it's a lot easier when you start journaling and write down what beliefs you form. But you want to not let the sentence finish. So for example, if I get close to people, they will only hurt me. If that's what you're thinking, if I get close to people, they'll only hurt me, that's false. But when you think that in your mind, when I get thoughts, stop it. Don't get to the period of the sentence. You've got to know that's false. Imagine, and most people who've been traumatized cannot do this to themselves, especially the low self-esteem, because they feel like it's natural and normal to talk this way about themselves. So then what I do is I say, pretend that you're talking to someone else you really love. Say it's your grandchild, or maybe it's your daughter or son, or imagine someone you really love who's very, very sweet, who's about 10 years old, 12 years old, 8 years old, however old you think they are. And they came up and started saying, I've been really, really hurt. That's why I don't trust anybody, because I'm only going to be hurt if I trust anybody. Would you say, high five, good point, way to go? I would spend the rest of your life to that life law, good thinking. I mean, I hope you wouldn't. You'd say, no. Well, first off, I'm so very, very sorry you were hurt. But what did you just say? I won't get close to people because they're only going to hurt me. No, that's not true at all. There are a lot of people you can trust in the world. Some people aren't trustworthy, and that's why trust must be earned. That's exactly right. But it's not true that all people will hurt you. That's not true at all. That will cut yourself off from all kinds of love and nutrients and relationships that God wants you to have. So the proper thing is to grieve what you went through and then learn the skill set to grieve when people disappoint you, because they're going to disappoint you. So instead of avoiding people, you want to avoid avoidance. That is, you want to fully embrace the fact that people, someone's going to hurt us. They can also be phenomenal. So if you would say that as pretty articulate to someone else, say it to yourself. I mean, just refuse to let those thoughts in your mind. Again, one more time, it helps a lot. One time, having a therapist, a counselor to help you think this is what your beliefs are. Sometimes you need help. 2, a good journal of what you believe about things. It's so important to write down what you believe. It doesn't matter if you think it's true or false yet. And good heavens, it doesn't matter if you think it's Christian enough. It just matters if you have the belief. So you don't judge it before it even comes out. You start saying, here's what I believe. Yeah, I guess it sounds horrible to say it. I've heard that all my life. I know, I shouldn't say it this way. Stop saying what you shouldn't say. What is the belief? Yeah, I guess if I'm being gut level honest, I just don't trust men. Because to put in that belief system, I believe men what? I believe men will desert me. I believe men will hurt me. Okay, let's put that on paper. Now, is it true or false that men will hurt you for the rest of your life? Well, no, now that I see it, that's right, that's good. That's how we start addressing it. You can't judge it first. Just put it on paper, get it out. So this also includes refusing to condemn yourself for grieving, for not seeing it coming or doing more, or whatever condemnatory belief you're tempted to repeat. And the despair can make us think that. Despair can make us repeat these bad things about ourselves. Guys who know me, I guess, and some girls too. I don't know girls females that well. I'm not really friends with females, so that's my wife. But all my guy friends have certainly heard of this. When I hear them talk about themselves, I'll say it to y'all. Please don't say mean stuff about yourself. Please don't do it. And despair can make us say horrible things. It's false. It's just false. I'm to blame. I should have seen it coming. What? You know what you should have been? You should have given yourself permission to just be a victim. If I'm going through a grieving process and so-and-so committed suicide, so-and-so divorced me, so-and-so, I found out they were lying all this, you're just a victim. It's not your fault. Not your fault. But those thoughts make a big difference. The more you dig into those irrational thoughts, the more you allow them to fester in your mind, the more despair you're going to feel. Not only do you feel sad enough, then you say crap about yourself, which makes you feel worse, and it compounds and compounds. It's just, it's a burden you don't have to carry. You don't have to care about that. Secondly, maintain some form of normal routine, regardless of how you feel. Continue to eat, exercise, shop, whatever. I tell people, particularly in pretty bad depression, but you ain't got a normal grief. Try your best to do some routine, period. Try your best to do some. Take a shower or bath, whatever you like. Get dressed. Get outside the house, apartment, condo, take a walk. Go to Walmart, walk around and stare at all of us weird people. I mean, whatever it is, just something that you do not do what you want to do, which is run off and hide in a dark closet and cry all day long and eat chocolate or something. That is not healthy for you. Well, I don't want to, I don't feel like it. Yep, that's right. That's right. You don't feel like it. And mature, healthy people don't make decisions based on how they feel all the time. They do things because it's the right thing to do. They do it because it's the right thing to do. Well, I don't understand that. Then can you at least just trust me that you need to do it? You need to do it. You must. I slipped on the ice twice last year, and the second time I just about broke my ankle. I mean, it hurt. I heard it pop. And for months, it was tight. For months. I remember talking to Tim Pratt, Dr. Pratt, and he was like, yeah, it's good to keep stretching out, do the letters, blah, blah. Now, as anybody doctor knows, that he can't make me do it. I'm not in jail. He's not my boss, not my Lord, not my lover. He's just like, yeah, that's what I would do. And I'm like, but I respect his, I want to hear his opinion is. And I go, okay, of course that makes sense to me. You got to keep stretching it out. And I did for months. And it finally got almost all better. I'm about like at 98%. And also at the gym, I'd work it out at the, the gym and so forth. But yeah, I mean, the thing that makes it worse, I said, to keep it still, right? He goes, yeah. If you don't stretch it out, it's going to stay, it'll get stuck that way. It'll get frozen, as it were. So the key is, you got to keep doing it. So if I don't feel like it, it hurts. You're right. But if you want it to get better, mobility to come back, it's like that with emotions. If you want our mobility to get back, the brain has to snap out of it. And that's by forcing it to do some kind of routine. That's a fair question. If you know someone going through that grief and you say, when's the last time you ate? If there's severe trauma going through, say like right in the middle of a divorce, right in the middle of whatever, I mean, simple things like getting a protein shake, go buying Youre at the store. Are you drinking water? Get some sleeping, get your doctor prescribe some healthy, safe pills to help you sleep. Some routine. This third one here, give yourself permission to be sad, weep, or grieve. Like Jesus, well, I love Romans 12:15. I love it. I love it. Rejoice with those who rejoice, and what? Weep with those who weep. You've got to give yourself permission to grieve it, and do it. You cannot heal if you do not express how you feel. It can't happen. It just can't happen. Well, time heals all wounds is a load of nonsense. It does not heal all wounds. That's fortune cookie nonsense. It does not. You can't heal deep wounds unless you express how you feel. And how do you do that? You talk explicitly about what you're feeling to someone you trust. You write or journal what you feel, whether you can or cannot speak with someone about your loss. Again, it's crucial to get out what you're feeling. Describe exactly what you feel when you write, not what you think you should be feeling. And a lot of Christians have a problem with this because we feel guilty for having negative feelings. And so, I'm not mad. I'm not, yes, just, and I've said this before, and I'm sorry for repeating myself a lot, but feelings are very much like the temperature on the thermostat. 73? How dare it be 73? Who does he think he is? Do you not love Jesus? Has he not just prayed about his temperature? See how stupid that sounds? That's exactly what we do about feelings. That's all our feelings are. It's an indication of the ambient environment. And our feelings are just an indication of some belief or some trauma, some circumstance we're in. Maybe it's false, and maybe the thermostat's broken. Fine, maybe it's broken. Maybe it's really 100 degrees, not 73. Fine, but I pay attention to it. I pay attention to it, and I don't judge it. I pay attention. That's all feelings are. I pay real close attention to feelings. I wonder why I'm feeling that way. Maybe I have a serious psychological disorder. Maybe. Okay, fine. Let's get to the root of that. But I pay attention to it. And the only way to do that is to feel sad. We've got to give ourselves permission. If you have been through trauma, particularly in childhood, if you were not given permission to be sad, you're going to stink at crying. And the reason why you're going to stink at crying, if someone said things like, buck up, suck it up, cowboy up, cowgirl, what's the problem, what's the big deal? You think you've got it bad, I'll show you bad. You think you've got it bad, I had it much worse. You think it bad, you ought to have met my parents. You have no idea what bad childhood is. Anything at all you were taught to stuff or dismiss your sad feelings, it taught you that you are not safe to express them, which then teaches you you're not worthy enough to have someone's sympathy. That's the belief you formed. You're not worthy of sympathy. As a child, that feels very true, because if I open up about sadness, feels vulnerable, feels very exposed. And then someone comes along and just slaps you when you're exposed to them. You will shrivel up and say, forget that, I'm not doing that junk again. I'm not gonna do that again. And when you're a kid, that's a very good survival technique. When you become an adult, it's not a good survival technique. It's very sad and unfortunate and unhealthy. So if you're really bad at crying, you might give yourself permission. So what I used to be bad at crying, and I got better at it, a lot better at that. A lot better at it. So what I started doing is hitting my nail with a hammer. I'm kidding, I didn't do that. Just make sure you're listening. So what I started doing is I listened to different music. I made a playlist for myself, something called Spotify. You can use YouTube, you can use CD, whatever. I made a playlist for myself that's very peaceful, and I started using the headphones. I put headphones on where it blocks out stuff, and for me, I had to get to a room, and to this day, I mostly do this, but I get into a room where people aren't around there, no TVs, kids aren't coming in, the dogs aren't barking, I need some space. Because when people are around me, I tend to feel that I'm needed. I need to do something. I'm always needed all the time, which in general life is fine. But when I'm trying to grieve, it's all about me. And I call that healthy selfish. You have to be that way. You have to be. Because I need attention. And the only way to do that is if I don't have people knocking on the door and so forth. So I get to where I use headphones. I'll turn my headphones on, put on that music. I also like a kind of music. You might want to write this down, called EMDR. EMDR. I'm sorry, I'm doing this from a weird angle right now. EMDR. It's an acronym for a particular therapy. Anyway, if you want to look that up. But EMDR started with people looking at a clock or whatnot, going left to right, or lights, and your eyeballs go left to right as far as possible. It might sound kind of cuckoo, but it's not cuckoo. It activates the left and right hemisphere of your brain. And it's calming. It also helps you get to a deeper memories. And then they switch to, you can do light, and also do sound. So a lot of times in EMDR therapy, they'll put little cheap headphones on you, and the sound will go like, you'll hear left, right, left, right, left, right. Well, you can go on YouTube right now or Spotify and put an EMDR music, EMDR playlist. And it's like kind of a pretty outdoor nature, but you'll go hear them left to right channel over and over. And that's one of my favorites. I'll do either my reflection list or I'll go to EMD playlist, EMDR, and I'll put that on and I got my journal. And I picture myself talking to God, Father, Son, Spirit. And I start saying, and this has changed me in my life too, is when I started journaling, when I stopped journaling as if I'm writing a book. When I just wrote exactly gut level what I'm thinking, because he already knows it anyway. And I mean gut level, completely unfiltered what you're feeling and thinking. And I will tell him that. Especially if I'm sad, I will tell Jesus what I lost. I'm so sad because. And then when the feelings come up and I start feeling sad to cry, I put my pen down and start crying. Well, when it comes over 5 seconds, okay, get back and start writing again. I practiced that for a long time. Now I can put on my headphones, push play, grab my pen and start crying. It has triggered my brain to get at it, and I love it. So I'm fine, that's great. It's triggered my brain, like now I'm getting in the zone. I get in the zone real fast now. It took me a long time to get there, but now I'm there. And I put it on, if I start crying, I put the pen down and get my grieving out. Sometimes I do that and I don't have to journal anything. I go, I feel better. I know what I was sad about, now I feel better. Other times I don't feel better yet, or I've still got some of my heart and mind, my chest. And that's giving myself permission. It took me a long time to give myself permission. So all I'm saying is, if you're not good at it, you can get good at it. There's hope. You can. You can. But it starts by giving yourself permission. Allowing the wounded child to be there and be safe and not judging yourself and be quiet, suck it up. None of that nonsense. Refuse that nonsense. Refuse it. If it helps you, picture Jesus putting his arm around you. You're sitting in his lap and he's going, please tell me what bothers you. What are you sad about? Picture him saying, please tell me what you're sad about, because it's okay to be sad around me. I want to comfort you. I developed sadness. I designed it. So it's a good thing. You're safe with me. If you can't picture Jesus, picture you saying that to someone else you love, some other 10-year-old, 12-year-old, 8-year-old boy or girl, and they're really, really sad, and you wouldn't tell them, shut up, get over it, get out of here, what a loser, why are you crying all the time, wimp? I hope you would say, no. I would say, what happened? What happened? When my dog died, my mom and dad got shot, and they're just really, really sad. Come here, baby, come here, baby, come here, come sit here. You're safe to be sad. And they start going, I'm okay, I'm okay. It's like, you're not okay. You're not okay. It's okay not to be okay, be sad. Now that same empathy you feel to this child, try your best to shove it on you. Put that spotlight on you and say, I want the same empathy, because it's the same thing that's going on inside. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but it's hard to do.
It is hard to do. So that's why I'm going to pause right here, because I got other stuff here. Let me pause it for a second. What comments or questions do you have about that? So we'll talk to me, Jennifer. So you said, I hear it, doesn't mean it's...
I don't want to do it.
I don't want to do it. Yeah, most people don't want to. Like physical therapy.
I don't, yeah.
No one wants to do it, right?
If you're sad and mad all the time, nobody wants to be around you.
If you're sad, mad, no one wants to be around you, which is also an irrational belief, but it is true that a lot of people don't have the skill set to deal with that. That is true. A lot of people don't. Not everybody. A lot of people don't have...
What can you do?
What's that?
So what can you do?
Yeah, well, that's exactly where if you can't find a person in your immediate context who can handle sadness or anger, this is when we go to counselors and therapists and pastors and people like that to say, because certainly therapists, not all pastors, but every therapist, counselor, they're trained to deal with that. And they don't feel anxious when someone else is upset. They're like, yeah, that's what people do, so they don't feel much more at home. But most other normal people don't have that training. They themselves have stifled their own ability to do that. And I need to fix it. I need to fix it. Yeah. But it can be discouraging and be sad when we open up to people who then don't know what to do with that pain and anger, and they get tired of it. And they let you know.
It's never ending.
Yeah. It can be discouraging. But praise God that there are counselors in the world who don't get tired of that. They don't. Not to mention counselors, therapists, psych wards, hospitals, doctors. I mean, there's a lot of people who they're used to that they don't feel at all, discouraged by that. They feel empathy for sad people, but it doesn't make them anxious or mad. It's very common for people who suffer trauma. I experience this often with people. They're convinced that their sadness is a burden to other people. They're convinced of that. And that's exactly what most people say. I'm sorry. They dry their eyes on it. Which, when you hear people like myself and others who've been in counseling training, and that's the first we go, please do not ever apologize for that. I didn't be sorry for it. Most people have never heard that in their lives. Like that isn't, you might as well say, ching chong, did you loop? That don't make any sense. What did you just say? I said, please don't apologize. You're not a burden for being sad. What? And that really means deep down inside you feel a burden to yourself. But there are people who are safe. There are. And another person who never judges you is the journal. A piece of paper doesn't judge you. Seriously. Studies demonstrate that writing it out is more therapeutic than actually typing it. But if you only type, or record it with your cell phone or microphone. But writing out is fantastic therapy.
Is that why people have pets?
Is that why people have pets?
Yes.
Some do. Some love them way more than it's normal.
Yes.
That's right. Because my pet never hurt me. Pet never judged me. Pet was always there. I can count on him. I know what makes my dog happy. I give that treat and we snuggle all day long. This is my baby. They get real close. They get a lot of emotional needs. Now, there's a degree to which, of course, that can be fantastic, which is why we have emotional support dogs, our pets. That can be fantastic. But in general, a person, when they get making out with their pet, and I'm like, they've got other emotional needs you're trying to get met. Yeah. It's always good to like pets, but yeah, if you love your pets, thumbs up. So yeah, there's a big difference there. And Michael, any other questions about that?
So what if you'd rather just isolate yourself from people?
What if you'd rather isolate yourself from people?
Just because it's too much for your own anxiety to deal with in yourself, and then to be other people around to let it out.
So instead of being around people, instead of letting it out?
I'd rather be home by myself, sleep it off, whatever.
Yeah.
Keep bearing it, or figuring out how to keep going.
So what do you do when you want to be by yourself? Well, sometimes that might be wise because it depends on the company you keep, right? Like I said, some company might not be able to handle that stuff if they're very immature themselves, if they're very wounded themselves. Not everyone can handle pain and grief. So we should have some degree of wisdom. So pick up on the cues if someone around you is like, I can't deal with all that time. Listen to them. But if there's anybody around you like that, that doesn't do that, it's best to try your best to open up. Only if you want to get better.
Are you allowed to let your anxiety just kind of I need to be calm and quiet for a day or so, and then just,
Yeah, okay,
Like,
so if you
you
need
know,
time to simmer.
because like Sunday when I left
Debrief.
here, I just had to go home, crash. Ken wanted me to go to lunch, and I declined that. And I went home, slept for a little bit, woke up like 3-4 hours later, and laid on the couch and just watched TV till I kind of picked myself up.
Well, it can be very wise to know our own limits. So there's nothing wrong with knowing our own limits. That's for real, that's for sure. So if someone says, dude, I'm sorry, I need a break, wise people know their limits. That's perfectly acceptable. Really, particularly if people get to anger, like, okay, I need to take a walk because I'm about to lose it. Well, know what your limits are. So pay attention to that for sure. So that's what I would tell a person. I would say in general, however, if a person has a habit of that in general, then I'd say they're just a defense mechanism. They're avoiding the pain and anxiety.
I don't do it all the time,
So-
but when it comes on,
When it comes in real bad,
I
so
have to shut down.
well, so I would say trust what that is. If you have someone who's able to dialogue with you, or even a journal, when anxiety hits hard, it'd be very, very wise to, before you go to sleep, while you are churning, to get the feelings and thoughts out. The only negative about sleeping so much, which we all want to do, like it's escapism. So that's not. It's a healthier way than getting drunk, but it's kind of the same. It's self-medicinal.
Yeah, I don't sleep all the time, but
Does that make sense?
Sunday I really knock myself out.
Sure, and that's normal, especially when anxiety's high and your body's like, I need a break because you've left my adrenaline on 10 or it's 8. Again, a lot of those things. So it's good to take naps. It's all those things. It's good to know your limits. But in general, if you find yourself doing that in general, like, okay, every time I get really anxious, I got to run and hide, or I got to run and take a nap, I got to run and I think first thing I would do is either journal as much as you can before you lie down, and or talk to a counselor or someone before you lie down to say, why do I feel the need to run right now? Why do I feel the need not to be around a peak person? What is it? If you pictured yourself as a younger girl who's upset, she doesn't go to lunch with her friend. How old is she? Roughly.
Talking to me?
Yeah.
4, 5.
4, 5? Okay, so toddler range.
But I
Gotcha.
still haven't figured out why.
That's okay.
I still
So,
can't.
that's all right. So it's a toddler range. So let's say, for example, a 4 or 5-year-old, let's say a 5-year-old, Jennifer's coming down this, she's walking along, you're holding her hand, all of a sudden she goes, I'm out of here, and she's run. You're like, okay, see ya. I'll see you in 12 hours. I mean, you might do that. I would suspect as a parent, you might go, hold on, wait. What happened? What happened? No, I can't do it. I can't go to lunch. Okay. But can you tell me what happened first before we make that decision? What happened first before we make that decision? Because otherwise, honey, no, I can't talk about it. Well, now I really want to know what happened. Why is it? What's the grief or the anger, the rage, the sadness? What is it to where you feel unsafe to talk about it? Then I'll talk to the 5-year-old. I'll say, I do this, to hate and joy or whatever. Baby, no. You can always talk to me. And we're going to talk. Now, I'm never going to change the subject till we talk about this. But if you feel this need to flee, something really happened. So let's talk. What happened? Well, I don't want to go. Okay. We'll make that decision a little bit. But first, let's talk about why you're so sad. Or you want to run away. We only want to run away when we feel scared. You feel in danger. So what's scary right now? What's going on inside of you? What makes you scared? With no judgment. I saw a boogeyman. Okay, what did he look like? So-and-so had a mean face at me. Okay, what did it look like? Tell me about it. You just give yourself the permission to go there for a little bit. And a journal can do that, a counselor can do that. Does that make sense? That's what we do to ourselves. Before we allow ourselves to run all the time, we pause and go, what was going on? What happened? What happened? It's so healthy if you can give yourself that permission. And we call that mindfulness. What's going on inside of me? I have a similar feeling. Every human does, but there are times when this is about every other day. I'm kidding. But when the stress level is really high, I start dreaming of Tennessee because I love going to Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg. Love it. And so that's one of our favorite spots. So when I might drive, I will drive on the road or I'll wake up in the morning and go, Tennessee. And there'll be seasons where I think about it often. Like I will picture myself there in the past, or by that river, or shopping this store called the Three Bears. And it's so chill and relaxed. And whatever it is, in my mind, I'm thinking, man, I've been thinking about a lot lately. And a lot of times it's because I'm on drugs. No, it's because I'm thinking, it's probably because my stress level is high. I'm thinking, I need to leave. There's something about, now we're going there in November. Part of that's coming because the trip's coming up. But sometimes I do the same thing with Moline or Peoria or whatever it might be. I'll tell Lane, I'll say, just, we need to get out of town. Let's go. So I don't care what we're doing. Let's just go to Coles. I'll go there and we'll go to the restaurant. We want you to get out. And that's that sense of escape. Now, if I did every time I'm anxious, I left town, that would be unhealthy.
I would never be here.
I would never be here. I would never be here.
Pack my horses up and I'm gone.
I would never be here. So it's not that, but there's a degree to which that's absolutely healthy to know our limits. To go, no, I need to change of pace, and that's very normal. So that's why I'm trying to nuance this. It's not like napping can be very good, but if in general, every time I get anxious, I start fleeing or have a strong desire to flee, then I would say, if I were your therapist, I'd say, let's figure out what's going on so that we don't need to flee to deal with that sadness or anxiety. So let's figure out ways to keep the stress, to process it, not deny it, not stuff it, but process that stress and anxiety such that, like the release valve is, psh, instead of it builds up, Tennessee, gotta go now. Instead of that, let's work to where it gets it to 2 or 3. And then every once in a while, sure, we take a break. Get out of town. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. And I can tell with Elaine too. Elaine will say, I really want to go to so-and-so. I really want to go to so-and-so. The more she talks about it, I tell you what's going on. Her stress level's high. There's a sense of, I need to go, I need to flee.
It was awful easy for me when I was going to college.
Mm.
When I was under a little pressure, sleep, always sleep.
Sleep.
Yeah. That was my escape mechanism.
Yeah, so sleep was this mechanism. Yeah, that's right. In college, that's true, because university students is very common. I'm going to take a nap. Yeah, very common. Nap for a long time. I know those guys who are that way, like they slept all the time. Yeah, I bet you mine a lot of times it was just anxiety.
Yeah.
They felt responsible for the grades and making mom and dad happy, and all that stuff. The burden was too much. Which again, I'd say napping is good. But for that reason all the time, there's probably a healthier mechanism that we can do instead of that. So you can get better at crying. You might not want to, but you can. Why? Because it's the right thing to do, because it helps you, because there's healing, makes you whole. God designed it to help us. There's all kinds of good reasons to do it. But when my point right now is you need to do it, and when you do it, it's okay to do that. It's part of the grieving process. The next point, I say, tell God all of your pain. And I do the Psalms. I put some scripture verses there. And know for certain God cares for you. And like in 1 Peter 5:7, cast your cares upon him because he cares for you. He cares for you. He cares. So tell him your pain. The Psalms are full of that stuff. So I only gave you 2 references, Psalm 73:26 and 142, 1-3. Tell God what your pain is. He cares. If you grew up in a home where mom and dad didn't care, mom or dad, or both did not care, that's going to be hard for you to believe that, because we transfer unto God our parents. And we have to get real clear that our God is not like our parents. Sometimes they're like it when it's good, but anything bad in your memory of your parents should not be transferred to God. He's not your literal parent at all. He's God. And so when you go to him and you're upset, he's not irritated. I'll say it this way. Your grief and your anger and your sadness and your stress and your worry is not a burden to God. At no point does God go, oh, I'm so... Would she stop praying about this? I'm so tired of this griping. God does not roll that way. That's not how our God is. He does not get burdened by our emotional state. Does not. Just doesn't happen. It is impossible for God to get irritated because you're praying or crying again. He will always say, I'm so sorry. Tell me more. I'm here for you. I love you. I'm proud of you for crying. There is a limit to your despair. God can heal or redeem your pain if you let him in the process. There is hope. There is hope. Like Paul says in 1 Thessalonians 4, brothers and sisters, I write to you that you do not grieve as those who have no hope. And he goes on to talk about Jesus coming back. So we grieve, but not people as if, I love how John Townsend, I think it was John Townsend who said it, that in Christianity, God gives us a limit to the despair. It's like a well. We don't fall down forever. We don't fall down forever. It stops. So there's a limit to the despair. God can meet you within the Christian community, so stay plugged into meaningful healing communities. He can. He cares that. He will use other people in your healing process. It might be a counselor, it might be a therapist, it might be a pastor, it might be Christian friends, it might be just a church that you come along and sometimes in the service you start crying. I've met many people through the years, children, old people. This happened here at Hilltop, at any church. They'll say, I came to your church and for some reason I just started crying. I go, good. I know. I said, no, don't judge it. That's good. It's good. Well, I don't know why I did. I have an idea, but I'm so glad you did. I'm so glad you did. You felt safe. God spoke to you. You felt safe. It taps into a sense of sadness or feelings or joy even sometimes. I felt all of a sudden this is right, or the song lyrics just got me. Praise God, you started crying. You're always safe to cry. It's good. So tell them your pain. Did you have your hand up? No? There is hope. We're in the midst of deep despair. You do not believe there's hope. You do not believe there's hope when you're in deep despair. As people often describe it, I do not see a light at the end of the tunnel. I feel a deep, horrible tunnel. I do not see a light. And my response always is, of course, I'm very sorry you feel that too, is I know exactly what you're talking about. Third, this is when you have to trust people who know a lot about grieving. When they say you can get to the end of the tunnel, you need to trust them. You cannot trust your pain. I pay attention to the feelings. I don't trust them all the time. Why? Because they give me false beliefs. The false belief is, it won't get better. It'll never get better. I can't keep talking about this. I'm a burden on people. Those are false beliefs. When I started developing boundaries with one of my parents, and it was so difficult. There was a book I was reading at the time called Boundaries, and John Townsend and Henry Cloud, and there was several good chapters, and one chapter in particular was about boundaries with your parents. I read this one page so much, I think I got it memorized. I remember I remember this, it was so weird. Reading it felt like fresh waterfalls on my soul, and like an alien just spoke to me. So it felt so good and so weird. And part of me said, this is nonsense, there's no way. The other part said, oh, what if that's true? And I remember distinctly having this inner battle for a little while, and I thought, my way got me here. I don't want to stay feeling this way all the time. What if a person with a PhD in this knows what he's talking about? Them, both of them. What if trained therapists actually know something about boundaries? What if I trusted them? What if I tried it? Didn't work? What's the worst case scenario? I'll be disappointed. I'm already disappointed. So I took the medicine and it worked. It just worked. It did. But when you're in pain, you don't believe that stuff. But I'm telling you, that's why I say tell God all your pain because he cares about you. I mean, I had to write that stuff out, put it on mirrors, put it on a piece of paper, put it in my journal, memorize certain Bible verses over and over and over. 1 Peter 5:7, cast my cares because he cares about me. He cares about me. I'm not a burden to him. It will get better. He will heal me. He'll help me. And it works. I say read good books. For example, when someone you love dies, Brooke Noel and Pamela Blair, I wasn't ready to say goodbye, or Teresa Rando, How to Go On Living When Someone You Love Dies. There's all kinds of, the website coping.org. I haven't checked that lately. The last time I checked it, it was full of good information. Coping.org, COPING. It's a really good website. It's really good. John Townsend and Henry Cloud have a website. It's probably just cloudtownsend.com or something like that. They got full of stuff. So good books, good journals, I'm telling you. Another thing we almost always believe when we're sad is that we're the only ones going through this. We're the only ones who have experienced this. No one knows what we're going through. It's just false. It's just false. I've taught, if I got $1 for every time I was in counseling session, I told someone, I go, yeah, it's very normal. And they go, really? Yeah, it's textbook. That's standard because you probably want to go, really? Yeah, it is. It is. Oh my goodness, why help? It does help, doesn't it? Because you're not a weirdo. You're not alone. This is normal. I mean, we humans go through the same patterns. That's why there's books and literatures and YouTube videos, and you're not alone. So there's good books on people who do this. And I say, moreover, absolutely avoid self-medication. Alcohol, drugs, sex, food, shopping. It's not a healthy coping mechanism in your grieving process. It is not. It does not help you grieve. It does not help you grieve. Well, David, what about taking SSRIs and whatnot, Valium and whatnot to help sleep or whatever? Absolutely great. That's great. That's to help your brain calm down enough so that you can work through the grieving process. But if you're doing that just to self-medicate, taking 8 sleeping pills every day, or certainly not non-prescription drugs or whatever, I'd say is if you're doing it as an avoidance mechanism, like shopping all the time, which gives us endorphins, or sex addiction gives us endorphins, or whatever it might be, drinking a whole lot numbs all the pain until the next day I wake up and it hits me all over again like a tidal wave. It doesn't help you in the grieving process. Those are not healthy ways to do it. Well, if I can't drink it off, I can't go to the club, I can't go to the bar, what am I supposed to do? Cry? That's back to the despair part. You've got to cry. Got to cry and cry and cry and cry. When it's serious. Okay, any questions? I want to move on. I want to go on to something else. To acceptance. Anything else? No? You need a break? You okay? You might need to cry? You can. I've got tissue boxes. She's got 2 tissue boxes. She's ready to go.
Smart.
She's ready to go. She's smart. She's ready to go. So, remember I said before, these stages come and go. They circle in and out. You don't go from one and all of a sudden, I'm better. I'm mad again. I've already passed that stage. It doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Somebody's like, oh, I'm mad. Yep, you're mad again. Yep, there's some more anger to feel. Okay. Again, you give that child permission to express that woundedness however he or she wants to. But eventually, he or she, when you get enough attention to that wounded child, enough grief has gone on, you get to a degree of acceptance. Remember I said this early on in the first week, I said acceptance doesn't mean you like it. And so here's a good description. It means we do not deny the loss. We are able to articulate our loss. Instead of going, nope, I can't go there. No, I can go there. We do not deny the loss. We are able to articulate our loss. We do not bargain our way out of our loss. We adapt appropriately to what has occurred. We combat irrational thoughts with rational thoughts. We're able to articulate our hurt and pain clearly and able to express our emotion freely and appropriately. We have a degree of self-confidence in our capacity to make it. There's a movie that was a really good movie. It's a thriller. It's really good. Martin Scorsese did it. Martin Scorsese is the director, but Leonardo DiCaprio is the main actor. It's called Shutter Island. And a little language in it, but man, if you haven't seen it, I can't tell you. Well, there's one guy, if you want to see it, it's just a really good movie, well done. There's a scene where one of the guys there comes to grips with the deep, deep sorrow he's been denying all this time. His wife had a psychotic episode and she drowned her 2 kids in the movie, and then she killed herself. And so the husband who found that, it was so disturbing, he what we call disassociation. He disassociated and he formed a different personality altogether. And every once in a while he comes through various treatments, he comes back and deals with reality, and it hits him all over again. And and he did such a great job acting. So demeanor changes, and he's just crying and crying. And they say, now can you tell me what happened? And he starts saying, yes, my wife killed he finally can admit it, drowned my 2 kids, I found them, da, da, da. Then what happened? Well, then blah, 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 blah. Then what happened? Blah, 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 blah. So you know where you're at right now? Yes, I do. And that scene where he finally gets what happened to him, that's the degree of acceptance I'm talking about. Doesn't mean he's not sad anymore sometimes. It just means I can say it, I know what happened. Now, it's not a perfect example of acceptance, but I always saw that scene. So I like how Warden Williams says of this in the book, Grief Counseling and Grief Therapy. This is the 4 main tasks of healthy grief recovery. And I put this under acceptance. 1, accepting the reality of the loss. And remember that goes by identifying it, labeling it, and so forth. 2, working through the pain and complexity of grief. 3, adjusting to an environment in which the important person, place, activity, relationship, etc. is missing. And 4, moving away from grief and longing for what is lost and finding a place for it in our memories as we move on with life. Moving away from grief and longing for what is lost, trying to get it back, trying to relive it. versus finding a place for it in our memories. So if I can give you an analogy. When I think about things in our past, I'm not sure why I think of this analogy, but I'm not really a boat person, but imagine for a second, our memory inside of your mind is memories like a big lake or whatever. And in that lake, you have different docks. And each, where the boat can go into the dock and so forth. And then these docks, they have access to various memories. And what happens is when we think about things down memory lane, wherever it might be, we have our little boat, our tugboat, and we circle through this mode all the time. We can meander back and forth wherever we want. And what healthy people do who have processed all their trauma, they just go from place to place, and they can pause and look at the memories when they want to. If they stared and looked at that memory and got off on the dock and got off and walked around for a while, they might even start crying a little bit. They might think of the loved one they lost and go, man, it makes me still kind of sad. I miss his smile. I miss her, blah, blah. And that's if they choose to. If they choose to get off the dock and then relive it and kind of go there for a while, look at old pictures and so forth. But in general, they kind of stay on the boat and say, that is what happened. It has both negative and positive memories to it. Whatever it might be, I see it, that's what it is, and then I go along to something else in life. What people who have not healed do, what they do is they get attached. So it's as if they have this big old baggage, and then they carry it with them, and they go tuk, 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 tuk. And everywhere they go, they bring that big package with them, wherever they go. And then, oh, that was sad too. I'll put that on. I put it on that box. And before we know it, we walk around, as it were, in our memory lane. We've always got these huge burdens that we're just carrying with us wherever we go. And it's a big, heavy burden. That's what happens when you're not grieved. And I think about this analogy often when I talk to people and they say, how you doing about whatever it is? And they instantly start crying. If you can start crying right away, you've got your tugboat, you're pulling stuff around. You've got some trauma that's not been healed. Some people can cry easily, but in general, that's probably what happened. It's often, particularly my line of work, I did job interviews for people for a position up front, and I interviewed 3 different females, 2 of the 3 females, 2 of the 3. When I said, tell me about yourself, why do you want this job? They started crying. And it's not just because they're females, but they tell me their stories because there's some pain in their past. But they brought it up right away. It's right on the surface, as it were. Now, that doesn't mean they've done no healing. It does mean, however, it's still very fresh. They can tap into it very quickly. And that means they still have grieving to do. So I'll give you an example of the family next door whose child died. And after about a year, which is probably pretty textbook, he said, I'm finally out of the fog. And what he means, of course, is I'm not in my despair stage all the time, weeping all the time, depression all the time. Does that mean he no longer misses his son? Of course not. Of course not. You don't get over that. Who's my son? What's his name? You don't get over it. You don't get closure like, that happened. But rather you get some acceptance of that. I have experienced that loss. I did go through it. It was extremely traumatizing. If I sit on that dock and replay all the memories of that day, if I go back to all the photos, I'm going to cry. In fact, I probably cry for Christmas. Every time it was his birthday, I wake up every day and remember, oh yeah, my son's not here. So if I want to go back and sit on memory lane, I'll cry. And I should cry because my son's dead. That's very sad. But I've done so much of that healing work, now it doesn't tug behind me where I go. I can go to work and not think my son has died. I can go to Walmart and not think about my son being dead. I can go to bed at night and not be having flashbacks or nightmares. And that's part of that deep grief part we start getting out. We get a degree of acceptance. Does that mean he likes this acceptance and not being liking the pain? He just, like it just says here, he's moving away from a longing for what is lost, and now it's in my memories. Something the other day I was listening to, I said I had 2 things I want to tell you. This is one of them, and I hope maybe this helps, maybe not. The second thing is this. The other day I heard a guy I listened to on YouTube a good bit. I told you about him before, and his name is Tim Fletcher. Tim Fletcher, he's Canadian. and he's good. And he said something the other day. It was so simple, and so good, and so profound, just so good. I needed to hear it myself. I won't tell you just in case you need to hear it, but it's just so true. He said, when we go through trauma, go through loss, of course, and part of the coming to acceptance is that we don't develop false beliefs and so forth about the future and our lives. He says, so it's really important to remember, even when you've been through something really, really horrible in life, it's still true that you can have a good life. You can have a good life. You can. No matter what was done to you, no matter what you lost, you can still have a good life. Is it probably going, if it's a deep trauma, is it different than you wanted? Probably so. Is it different from what you expected? Probably so. But you can still have a good life. And that was good for me to hear it myself. I know my own trauma thing. It's so true. It's so true. It's like I give myself permission to be hopeful again, to say it is true. The couple that lost their son, can they still have a good life? Yes, they can. Is it this, maybe not as good as they had hoped it? Yep, great, but they still can. Their life is not over because of their loss. I said this last time about analogy. People who don't, they go through like a jail, they go to a jail sentence of something they didn't, there was no crime they committed. And they feel like it only feels normal and rational to stay in that jail cell, but it's not rational. You can get out. You can still have a good life. God can still use you in ways you never imagined before, no matter what you went through, period. You can. If you're still in the midst of your despair, what I just said will sound like I'm betraying their memory, or I'm betraying you. And that's not true. It's not betrayal. It's very common too. I can't move on. I can't let go. Because if I do that, it means that the loss never happened. That's not true. That's a false belief. It's a common false belief. And you can stop doing it. I'm going to pause there for a second. Any questions or comments about that? Anything at all? We're almost done with this tonight.
Maybe that's why the well-known thing is to let go and let God.
Yeah, let go and let God. And I like that expression, particularly on petty stuff. But if it's a deep trauma stuff, I will say let go of what exactly? If it means let go of it never really happened, that's denial. I'd say no, yeah. But if it's petty stuff, man, let it go. Let God do what he's going to do through it. But certainly let God, through the grief, he can give you, he's still going to give you all of himself. That's right. He's still going to do what he does best. Again, it may not be the life you thought. I know my life is not what I thought it'd be. My life is not what I thought it'd be. It's not. I didn't have a lot of plans, but it is not what I thought it would be. I've experienced a lot of loss in my life. I never thought I'd be in Kewanee, Illinois.
Me neither.
But here I am.
Be a loss there.
A loss. That's not a loss. I understand. I never pictured in my whole life. He said there's no other loss. I never thought of it that way before. No, I'm kidding. It's not. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, that part, I appreciate that. I appreciate it. I appreciate that. I'm glad. When there's no other options, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It's a bad option. No, I'm glad I'm here too. But I'm just saying, it's my life. You look back in life, the things done to me, and even in bad choices, even I myself have made. It's not, and it's reassuring all the time. Because it's true. You can still have a good life. God can still do great things to you. It just doesn't have to be what you expected, and that's okay. Okay, this next one on chronic grief, I won't spend that much time here, but I want to tip my hat to that to let you know there's something called chronic grief. And that's after about 6 months to a year after a loss, about 10 to 15% of people still experience acute emotional states of grief. And this is oftentimes called chronic grief. The definition in this one word, chronic grief therapy, states that chronic grief is distinguished from normal grief by feelings of hopelessness, loss of meaning and or belief systems, intense preoccupation and longing for a lost loved one or situation, apathy, lingering sense of disbelief about the loss, avoidance of situation or thoughts that are reminders of the loss, and sometimes distressing, intrusive thoughts related to the loss that are reminiscent of trauma symptoms, like PTSD basically. Left untreated, chronic grief can lead to severe clinical depression, substance abuse, and suicidal ideation. That means you start thinking about how you're going to end your life. So it is about 10 to 15% of people is like, I've done the grieving, I've done it. I know a woman whose husband had died. I didn't know the husband. Her son was close friends with Hayden for several years, and the sweet mom, real sweet, and but her husband had died, I want to say a couple years before I met her, and she could cry instantly thinking about him, just in cry. And every time she talked about it, she was always, and I would suspect strongly she struggles with chronic grief. I used to ask her, have you been to therapy? Have you been to, she goes, yeah. Now, I don't know how much she had, I don't know how much she had grieving, I don't know. But she'd be a good example of someone I think of that it was so hard for her. And that happens. People who are more prone to chronic grief are those who experience unexpected and or traumatic loss, like sudden death or violence or catastrophic injury. Those who have a history of mental health struggles, substance abuse, childhood abuse, neglect or trauma. People with a high degree of dependency on other people. So basically the point is, if your raw material isn't really stable in the first place, and then you experience a highly traumatic event, it's a little more likely your chronic grief is going to develop. And you can still get therapy for it. It just means that you're not weird. But that's why I tell people there's no magic number. You don't say, hey man, it's been 3 months, you should be over it by now. It just, in general, 6 months to a year after a severe loss is pretty standard for people of a severe loss. It doesn't mean it has to be on 12 months midnight. It just means in general. But if a person is weeping just as hard as they were 11 months earlier, something's going on otherwise. Maybe it's a biochemical thing, maybe, and there's all kinds of issues. So you don't give up, you just, the counselor who knows what they're doing will know that and say, okay, we need a little different help for that. But that is possible. It is possible. This last thing I do, I always do this to make sure if you look for someone to help. So you might need a non-judgmental friend or therapist who can help. And I always, don't ever be ashamed to receive counsel. God can and does bring great healing through someone else. And then I say this last bit on purpose. If you are that friend for someone who's going through it, here are some tips to help you be a good friend during someone's grief. And if you need one, perfect. But if you are that person, be with them in their grief, right? Weep with those who weep, rejoice with those who rejoice. Listen to them, validate their pain. Be with them. What I mean by be with them is disallow your friend from moving on too quickly. Disallow your friend from going, I know, I've just been praying about it, I need to get over it. I'm glad you're praying about it. Can you tell me more? I'm doing well. If you're doing that well, why do you keep crying about it? Well, I know, I just need to have faith. Good, I'm glad you have faith. It seems to me that you're obfuscating, you're trying to get around the issue. What's going on? Why are you sad? Talk to me. How are you feeling? Be with them. Let them see you're safe to be okay. Secondly, do not tell them what to feel. You don't tell them what to feel. It's your job to be a safe place for their terribly chaotic, unsafe feeling the person's experiencing. Don't tell them what to feel. This is one of the most common, horrible mistakes people make with conventional wisdom. Well, here's what you ought to do. You shouldn't be feeling that. You shouldn't be angry. You should forgive them. Oh, the damage that people have done of saying nonsense like that. Don't tell them what to feel. Don't tell them what to feel. Don't feel. Just don't do it. You should be 73 degrees. You should be 74. Just don't tell them what to feel. I'm so sorry you feel that way. Affirm appropriate behavior. It's okay to be angry right now. It's okay to weep like that when you've never been at home. That's fun. But encourage them to change when needed. The behavior, not the feelings. Have you eaten a meal lately? When's the last time you exercised or went for a walk? You're not being preachy. They get enough of that in their head. It is always okay to encourage proper behavior. Brother, I love you. I've said it, brother, I love you. You have got to be eating. You've got to eat. Feel whatever you're going to feel. I'm always safe. You can be whatever. You can be not angry, irritable. I don't care. But you've got to eat. If you get around me, we're going to go buy some Youre, a protein shake. We're going to get some lunch. I can't keep it down. We'll do 1 cup of Youre. I want to do it in front of me. Are you getting some sleep? Well, I'm just so upset. I just need 1 more drink. Please do not drink. I'm so sorry you're sad, but please do not drink. That will not help you. That does not help you heal. It helps you be numb, and you don't want to be numb. Numb keeps you frozen in this grief. You don't want to be frozen in the grief. I know you're angry, I know you're sad, and you should keep feeling that, and keep journaling, and keep crying. I know it's exhausting. I've cried so much, I run out of tears. I know what that feels like. I'm so sorry. But drinking's not going to help. And you see the difference? They're very different. Approve feeling, but you can help encourage them to the right behavior. Of course, know your own boundaries. It does the other person no good if you break down weeping every time you're with them. You can't fix them or make it go away, period. So if every time you get around them, you get all mad, well, you're not a good helper. You need that person to be in their child ego state, but you don't have to go down to the child ego state too to help them. You don't need to. Avoid transference. That is to say, don't let their problem become your problem. You go home just so burdened. That's a boundary problem on your part. And if you can't separate sufficiently, then tell the person that you can't listen anymore. Help them find someone who can listen if you'd like. But you just say that. You say, I'm so sorry. This topic, man, I'm having a hard time myself processing this. It's very, very difficult. I love you. This is, for some reason for me, maybe it's triggering my own stuff, my own childhood. If you don't know what it is, you don't know. If you do, say that is exactly what's happening. So it's not, I love you and you're safe ground, but that exact topic, man, it's making me hard. I've had to go to my own counselor. So why don't we, for at least for the time being, let me get my own wherewithal. Does that make sense? If you can't do that, if you can't go there. So know your own limits. That's okay. You're not saying, get over it. No. Mm-mm. A lot of people think that if they're mad, I gotta be mad too. It's not right he did that. You're right. Let's go out and shoot somebody. Like that just makes everyone just really angry. That's not what they need. They need validation that they're angry. It makes sense to be angry. I'm so sorry that you're angry. Absolutely. Listen to the anger, but it doesn't help them for you to get riled up. Then you're just gonna be two angry people. Does that mean I can never cry with them ever? No. What I said was, if you break down weeping every time you're with them, weeping some, sure. Yep. One of my friends as a kid, he accidentally got shot by another friend of mine. And when my mom found out, she freaked out and cussed and whatnot. And we almost walked to his house. My dad picked us up. He was getting off of work. He had to get a substitute. Go to the house. And I go inside and his book's there on the table. I had Spanish with him. And he's my brother, one of my brother's very best friends, but I knew him pretty well, but he's one of my brother's best friends. My brother was in the room when he got shot. And he saw his brain all over the wall. And so when I walk in the door, my mom sees his mom, his name is Brent, sees Brent's mom. And Brent's mom's already kind of crying, but as soon as she sees my mom, she starts crying more. My mom starts weeping. They run and just hug each other. I remember being near the kitchen. I remember seeing this. They just started weeping. They just held each other and cried and cried and cried and cried. And of course, she makes you tear up. I remember at the time, and I was, 14 years old, I guess? 13, 14. And so in that moment, that's exactly what that mom needed. She needed someone to be there to feel the permission to be sad, to come to grips with her son is dead. And unfortunately, which is also textbook, most marriages don't last out. They didn't. They eventually had to get divorced. The trauma's too much. But that moment, I'm not talking about don't cry, be a star, be strong. That doesn't make any sense. And that's exactly what my mom should have done. It is exactly. And eventually kind of dried up a little bit, and we were able to talk some, and they cried some more. They dried up and cried. I mean, that was healthy. But I'm just saying, if you're working with a person on a chronic period of time, and every time you're going down the depths with them, that doesn't help them as much as you might think it does. And of course, pray for them, serve them. How can I help you? I'm praying for you. In this day and age, you can send them texts. Love you, brother. Love you, sister. I'm with you. Here's a Bible verse. Here's a song. I like to send good songs that are encouraging to people. Send them a YouTube link. We thank you, Lord Jesus, so much once again for the opportunity to meet together. And God, I ask constantly, and I do right now, that your Spirit would help us grieve whenever it's time to grieve. That you really would provide comfort. As you said you would, as you did in John's Gospel, and as just as Paul said to Corinthians, that we can be comforted, and the same Spirit by which we are comforted, we can comfort other people. Please help us do that. Please help us comfort people as much as we can. Help us allow ourselves to be comforted from other people. And God, for those of us that have been traumatized as children, it takes a lot of courage. So we need your courage to do that. We need your courage to reach out for help, to be vulnerable, to be open, to give ourselves all the safety and permission we need to feel sad, no matter the reason why. Even if we can't put our finger on what happened, just to be. because that is okay and so good. And we love you and thank you so much that you've given us the chance to cry and to grieve and to feel these emotions so that we can process them and metabolize the loss. We're also very thankful, Lord Jesus, that you're not shocked and our life is not over and that we can still have a very good life in the kingdom of God here on earth, even after suffering trauma. We're so thankful that you can redeem any situation and you can work through any kind of woundedness and still make us citizens of the kingdom of God that are making a difference for the kingdom. Thank you for that. Please help us really believe that. Thank you for loving us. Thank you for being the kind of God to whom we can cast our cares, know that you do love us and care for us. That is a phenomenal thought. And for those of us that grew up with a mom or dad that had a conditional love or they cut us off, please help us not put on to you that trauma. Please help us really receive your love, an unconditional, deep love, that we are sons and daughters of the King. Holy Spirit, as we go out tonight, help us be people who listen to people's pain, that we're a safe place as much as possible. And as we do process our own grief, help us constantly give it over to you so that we can process it and move forward and move on in the grace that you provide. To the glory of Jesus we pray. Amen. Thank you all for joining. Thank you.
That was, thank you.